Hey guys, it's Cauliflower, and today I have a little bit of a different video for you. It's more of a sit down video, and I apologize because I am actually filming in the dark. It's kind of 4:30 and it's really dark out, so I have my lighting behind me, so I hope it's not too bad. I hope you can see me well. So I wanted to do one of these videos. It's been quite some time since I have. This is pretty much on the topic of depression and anxiety, which I know I've done a couple of other videos in the past about, but I haven't done any since. And I think it's important not only for you guys for me to make this kind of a video, but for me and for other people that are in my life that may watch me. I wanted to touch upon one of specific topics that I have a personal problem with in my own life because I do struggle with. I was diagnosed, if you guys didn't know, for you guys that are just new to the whole situation of my channel, I have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder since I was 23 years old. And I went through a series of different types of medications and, of course, therapy, hospitalizations, what have it. I've done it. I've gone through a lot of it. And I've had a lot of series of different relationships and people that I've been involved with that have had similar depressions, anxieties, that kind of thing. And as of today, I am a child of that as well. My parents did. I know my mom did. My father, I don't know if it was ever diagnosed as him having any type of depression, but he did have a lot of anger issues, I can tell you that much. But anyway, this is kind of talking from my perspective rather than going through my entire history or people that I know. Today, what I wanted to talk about was triggers. And it's very, very difficult to pinpoint an actual trigger or what causes behaviors when you have a certain type of, I don't want to say disorder, when you have a certain type of illness. I hate calling it that too because I don't like the words mental and illness. I don't like any of that. Let's just say if you have depression and some sort of type of it. Now, what happens to you when something is a trigger? What does that even mean as far as like a triggered behavior? And basically, it means that something that might have happened during your day, or something that was traumatic, or something that stresses you out, could be your job, your marriage, your kids, what have you, it causes you to go into a fluctuation of behavior. And depending on the type of depression you have, whether it's bipolar, whether it's personality borderline, whether it's anxiety, whatever it is, triggers are mainly what sets you off into full blown whatever it is, whether it's a manic, whether it's a panic attack, whether it's, just a meltdown, whether you have, you're susceptible to being in public and you feel suffocated, whatever it is. There are things that trigger that. And that's what I want to focus on today in this video, because I feel that a lot of the times we don't really identify the trigger so much as we identify with the behavior. We know that the behavior goes on. We know that some irrational things are said, irrational things are done. We might not even realize what we're doing or saying at the time because of these overcoming or overpowering feelings or things that are going on in our minds. But something is that trigger. And I think that's where a lot of the times we miss out on learning about our specific disease or depression, because we're not looking at what a trigger is or what it can function as far as your behavior. So as I said before, for me, I will say, truthfully, my triggers normally are somebody else having probably a very high manic episode. I know that stress is a very big trigger for me. I know that, anxiety happens because I'm triggered from something else. So that could be anything. That could be worrying about money. That could be worrying about my child. That could be worrying about, just my health or somebody else's health, or just, thoughts that process in my head because of something that might have triggered that. And most times I don't understand where the triggers come from. Sometimes it could just be, random thoughts, just thoughts that you have during a normal day. It could just be, if you wake up and, the first thing you're thinking of is, how you're going to function during your day. When I wake up right away in my head, I'm worried about, the safety of people. And, I usually wake up with my daughter every day to send her to school. And there are times that in my head, which is going to sound really scary, I have a system of songs playing in my head. And my triggered song, it's going to sound really crazy, is Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. That is one of my first ever real identifiable triggers that I could tell you specifically, that I can give you amicably to tell you that it triggers my anxiety. Because when I was a child, when I was younger, when my mother was a, active alcoholic, she would play that song constantly and she would be upset with it. She would cry to it. She would, throw tantrums to it. And all I know is every time since, anytime I hear that song, get wherever I am, doesn't matter where I am, whenever I hear that song go on a radio or anything, I'm immediately, I'm like triggered. So either I go to turn it off, or after that song, an instant bad thought arises in my head. And from that point on, my choice is I can either go with it or I could choose to make it go away. And a long time ago, I wasn't able to do that. In fact, I would just kind of just fall into the pit of listening to it in my head, and whatever else followed up with it, whether my head was telling me, someone's going to die or someone's going to not, whatever it was, the extreme of the extreme. And for me, it was always, I had to escape listening to that at that moment, because now this is a trigger for the way I feel about situations that cause me anxiety. There's other triggers that I do have as well. The phone ringing is a big trigger for me. I feel like every time the phone rings that there's going to be bad news and that there's going to be something horrific, because, again, something as simple like that, where it's so innocent and it happens every single day, could cause your life to change. And in most times, that has not been the truth, but in recent times, it has been. Especially if I get an early morning call or a late night call or just an unexpected, whatever it is. And the last time that I got an early morning call, unexpected call, was on a Sunday morning. And of course, that was my father's death. And again, it was an unexpected thing, but when the phone rang, it instantly triggered me to be very anxious. And I remember I was trying to make breakfast that Sunday morning, but I was very conscious that somebody else was talking on the phone and I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. But I was ready for some kind of horrible thing to happen. What I really want you guys to understand, as far as like triggers or anything that might set you off, that ends up in that tailspin that you might go through, is when you identify what exactly that trigger is, whether it's a look, whether it's a song, whether it's, the sound of a pen dropping on the floor. It could be anything. That instantaneously why that thing makes you feel the way it does, or why you instantaneously go from that to the behavior that is attached to your specific type of depression. And I think it's important to focus on that, especially when you're in therapy or when you're about to go to therapy and a therapist will ask you, of course, the standard questions of, well, tell me about what goes on. Tell me about what happens. I think it's really important to include the triggers, because you can say, I just broke up with my girlfriend, or I just had a death in the family. I mean, these are obvious reasons why you would go into any kind of depression. Those are human reasons. But then there are those reasons that don't make any kind of sense, that you can't explain all the time, that just set you off, and you're off and running and don't even know why. I think it's important to identify with those triggers. And if you can identify with those triggers, to find ways to ease those triggers before they hit the plateau they can hit. And believe me, I'm not saying this is something that can happen overnight. I'm not a licensed anything. This is just me speaking from my own experience. But I do believe that once you have a pattern of understanding yourself and what upsets you or what sets you off, I think at that point you can actually start to feel better because at least you have a little bit of control as to what sets you off. And I'm not going to lie, it is hard. It is very, very hard to dismiss a trigger. I mean, I can, like I said, if I hear Bohemian Rhapsody, I get up and I'm flipping because I don't want to hear it. But if I tell myself in my head that this is just a song or this is just, there's no real reason for you to react this way. You're reacting this way because you're attaching it to something that's, negative or something that reminded you of something long ago that is no longer the case anymore. You're an adult now. It's very specific and it doesn't have to get to the point that it gets. The other thing that I mentioned is manic behavior. And when I say manic behavior, obviously I identify manic behavior because I have my own. But with my personal manic behavior, it's like a buildup. It doesn't happen immediately. It doesn't happen, it used to. I mean, it used to when I was younger. I think in my experience and in my age, that as I've grown older and as I've become more aware and I've, of course, had, different types of support and therapy, that I've realized on my own that there are certain things that does trigger me as far as manic behavior. So if I know somebody, if I'm close to somebody and they are bipolar or they are anxious or what have you, even my daughter, I will go as far to say that with my daughter who has Asperger's, there are things that she does that triggers me. And I don't realize it sometimes because I know that she has these things and that it's going to happen and that, she can't help certain issues that she has. But I know for me, in just maybe, it's a bad day or what have you, if I see her doing certain behaviors, if I see her pacing, if I see her flipping lights on and off, if I see her replacing things that I just put down, or if I did something and she comes and redoes it, it just sets me off. And it's like it's just a very stressful feeling for me. And I don't want to react to it because I know that this is something she can't help, but it is something that does trigger my specific diagnosis, however you want to, call it. There's a high alert and a high level of trigger that sets me off, and that is manic. When somebody is manic in front of me, when somebody has a manic episode, when somebody is irrational to the point of they're not stopping, then for me, I get one of two ways. Either I get extremely calm and extremely trying to control a situation, or I get the complete opposite to where I am now battling. And that can be a really dangerous thing for both people because it has caused me to physically, lash out. It's caused me to mentally lash out, verbally lash out. And it's not something that I end up feeling that I'm in control anymore. Now I'm not, because now I'm dealing in a manic situation, which I probably should remove myself from. But being the kind of person I am, I try not to, because I'm trying to now help the other person in the manic situation. For me, throughout my life, I've had so many people that I was close to that had what have you. Doesn't matter what kind of depression, doesn't matter what kind of issue they had. I was that type of person that was more drawn to them because I felt like, well, if I help them, then maybe that'll help me, that kind of a thing. It's kind of textbook. It does not work that way. When you are sick or you are not doing well and you are looking to help somebody else, that is not the answer. That is not what's going to help you. Yes, it is calming and contentment for a while, but then at some point you become really resentful and really almost like you are expecting it to come back at you, and that's not always the case. And I was guilty of that, where every person I loved a certain capacity or I treated a certain capacity and was there for them, I felt like, well, I should be getting back the same kind of, behavior now because I'm giving this much. And what I didn't realize is that was part of my disease because it was a need to calm what was going on inside of me. And that is another trigger. We try to look for things that are going to keep the demons at bay. So anything that gets us off of the task of having to look at ourselves, we are going to go and jump full blown into and be immersed inside of it. And this is a topic I probably can go on for hours and hours and hours, but I just wanted to give you a little bit more of like a personal. This is not across the board. I'm not saying everybody out there who has borderline personality disorder, this is what it is. I'm saying that majority of those who do have high levels of depression or anxiety or what have you have what's called triggers, and there are legitimate reasons and legitimate things that actually cause them to go into the hyper or the whatever it is anxious behavior. And I just want you guys to realize and focus on what those could be. And if you can figure that out, if you can look and see inside yourself, if you're willing to actually really think about it and be honest with yourself, you'll come to those and you will actually say, oh, this does, I know definitely this is a trigger. This is, this will set me off and this is what happens. And I think it's the first real important step in any kind of therapy is to identify. And then after you identify, you can adapt to handling it, whether it's through therapy, through medication, through yoga, through meditation, whatever it is that ails you. I think it's an important process to start from the actual portion it comes from. I know it's not making sense because I'm kind of like repeating the same words, but you get my drift. Okay, guys, I just wanted to just let you guys know that this is very therapeutic for me as much as it is helping you guys, and I really do appreciate your feedback on this. Any of you that have any kind of feedback, any kind of, whatever experience that you're going through, I really welcome you to leave comments below. I think it's very helpful that we all kind of like just share and discuss what we handle, what's difficult for us, what's our triggers, and maybe in some way, shape, or form we can all support each other and help each other. So I hope you guys got something out of this video. I know it's pretty long, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.